You are now listening to Talk Your Jits podcast.
Welcome back to Talk Your Jits podcast. This podcast is, as the name implies, all about jiu-jitsu. I'm your host, Lamar Smith. And today's guest is a fifth degree black belt who trains at Smash Gyms located in Mountain View, California. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Jen.
Hey, thanks
How's
for
it?
having me.
Man, the pleasure is all mine. How are you doing today?
Very good.
Good. Oop, I didn't drop something. But first and foremost, I would like to extend my thanks for you coming on and doing this show with me today. Very appreciate it.
No problem.
All right. Well, without further ado, let's get into it. If you want to formally introduce yourself again, by all means, and let's hear about your jiu-jitsu journey.
Sure. I mean, I'll keep my background story a little short. I mean, personally, I think background stories are a little boring. I like to, when I listen to podcasts, I like to get people's views on things. And but anyway, I started jiu-jitsu in 1991. So this was before the first UFC. There wasn't much jiu-jitsu around. I was in college. I started then. And I continued even after college, and I eventually got my black belt from Joe Moreira in 2001.
Master Joe.
Yeah. And then now I'm fifth degree black belt. So I've been just like I said, just doing it since I started, and it was a passion of mine. And even graduating college, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And eventually I decided that I just wanted to make a living doing this kind of stuff, doing something I enjoyed, and I've been doing it ever since.
Nice. So you are, so you got your black belt under Joe Moreira.
Mm-hmm.
We are a Joe Moreira affiliate school ourselves, so that's always good to meet family. So since we're gonna get to this early, the question that I always ask people who's met Joe, who's trained under Joe, like, how long did it take for you to learn how to speak Joe?
It didn't take that long for me. I've always been able to understand in general what he's been saying. It is funny because a lot of my students cannot. Whenever he comes and does seminars, I have to turn his English into regular English. And then, and I just find it amusing when he starts going on to this long spiel for like 10 minutes. And he goes, everybody understand? And then people are nodding their head. And I'm thinking in my mind, dude, you guys do not
understand
anything he's saying there, But his English surprisingly actually has improved, because my wife actually many years ago was looking at some video clips of him when he did some videos with Panther Videos. I don't even know if that company's around anymore, but these were some very, very old instructional videos. And she said that she could only understand about 30% of what he said. And then many years later, he's up here doing seminars, and she says she can understand about 60% of what he says. So, so in teaching jiu-jitsu, I have no problem understanding him. The only time I have to really make sure I know what he's saying is when I am booking a flight for him, and I'm trying to differentiate between Tuesday and Thursday. I'm trying to make it really clear what day he's supposed to be arriving here, and I always poke fun of him about that. And I'm like, man, your children speak fluent English. And all these years. Yeah. Right. They're American, right? And he still speaks. It's very, very tough. And he really loves lecturing about his principles and stuff there. And like I said, I understand what he's saying. But yeah. So yeah, like I said, I always have to translate what he says there for my students.
Yeah, it's funny because his son Joe Jr. I talk to him on social media a lot, or especially when he comes to Detroit. When they come to Detroit, we chat a lot. And like you said, like his kids speak that fluent English, but him, it sounds like he just got here. No matter how much you hear him talk, he just sounds like he just got here.
Yep. Yeah.
And it's funny because I talk about that a lot with my instructor, just the many times that I've seen, like, yeah, his old instructional videos or his old matches, and hear that thick dialect, and not understanding any of it until you start really sit down and like have a normal conversation with him. And now I'm at the point where like I can understand like, yeah, like a good 70-80% of what he's saying now.
Yeah,
And it's
I think
still
part of the thing also is, I mean, maybe just as students, just out of respect, nobody corrects him,
no, of course.
and so he'll say, "Get up on your toe foot," and and everybody's like, "What the heck is a toe foot?" I mean, he's basically saying, "Get up on the ball of your foot."
Yeah.
But you don't correct him. He's like, "No, this is how you say it, Joe." He's just like, "Okay, toe foot." That's how he says it there. So
It's one word that he used is Portuguese for Littlefoot. I'm trying to remember what it was. But he came and did a seminar, and he was going over leg locks, and he kept saying that word, and everyone just kept looking like, what? I can't even remember. So we were all looking around like, you mean foot or little boot, or he like boot or foot or something like that. So he's
Yeah.
like, yeah, go with that. Just go. And we worked the technique, but
Yeah. That's why I also know that sometimes if there's something written and I read it and I can tell, I'm like, dude, that is not written by Joe. Somebody was his ghostwriter or something like
right.
that. No way he speaks like that.
Like you can tell the difference when he posts something about him traveling or training,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
someone else posting. I'm like, no, he types it the way he talks, and you can hear, like when they say you can't hear words, oh, you can hear the words. You can hear the words.
yeah. But yeah. Like I said, with instruction, I have no problem understanding it there. Even if I didn't, I'm just like, just do it to me, and then I'll understand it. So.
Right, that universal language, of course.
Yeah.
So with you being being a fifth degree, and you basically learning jujitsu before it was, I guess you want to say, mainstream now, because back then it wasn't a lot of people who wasn't Brazilian doing jujitsu.
Mm-hmm.
So like, how was that for you? Taking learning a sport that didn't really, I wouldn't say accept outsiders, but it was very tough. It seemed like for anybody to want to learn it.
Right. It was very difficult because we did not have the information that's available now. I mean, in all honesty, like I've said this to some people before. If you could take all the resources people had now and give that to me back when in 1991, I would have got black belt in half the time here. I mean, people have an unlimited amount of information nowadays, free too. I mean, there's paid stuff, but just on the level of free, there's so much. And we lacked a lot of information. To be honest, there was this kind of thing where when it was new, was a lot of kind of Brazilian versus American type of thing here. Like if I'm at a school and we're rolling here, if I'm rolling against these are my own classmates, like against a Brazilian, all the Brazilians are coaching that Brazilian against me. And then I got my one American buddy here giving me some tips and stuff there, and I mean, it wasn't like at Joe School, there wasn't any sort of animosity with Walmart, but naturally the Brazilians wanted to help out the Brazilians there. And, it was, it was just much more difficult to get information back then. I think that there tended to be, everything was more cliquish there too, so the rivalries between schools was much stronger, and it's definitely, that's one positive thing that has changed. I mean, before it was the rivalry between schools at times like was almost like gang like, and a lot of Americans eventually didn't like it. And I think that the Brazilians eventually realized that if they want to be financially successful in the United States, they have to cut that out here and make some changes, which they eventually did. So, I mean, it is interesting on a side note that I in later years have met up with some of the Brazilian instructors that were more, standoffish, cliquish, whatever you want to say, and my school, and their attitudes are completely different now. They're much more open, much, like I said, it's very refreshing and nice. I mean, they've changed, and we all have changed in ways, and I think that many of them have changed for the better there. And but yeah, in general there was a lack of information. I mean, I remember wanting to learn how to pin somebody properly, and I was going to the UC San Diego library looking up judo and wrestling books just about pinning, wrestling. I mean, we just don't have the same kinds of, we didn't have the same kind of resource. And along those lines too, now wrestlers are working, and judo players are working with jujitsu. We're all working with each other. Jujitsu being added to judo.
Yeah.
It was much more segregated. It's just like, the wrestlers wanted to prove that they were the best. Jiu-jitsu wanted to prove that they were the best. Judo wanted to prove that they were the best, and so if I was visiting a judo place back when I was a blue belt, it was very, very competitive there, and sometimes, yes, there would be a little bit of cross training and sharing, but just the general thing, it's very different from where it is now. And this is one of those very positive changes, that people are just working together more, and the community is just much more open within the community and between different communities too, and I mean, like my boys right now, since they were little, have been very heavily involved in the judo community, and the judo community has been so welcoming, so great, and I love it. Like I said, my boys actually do more judo than they do jujitsu. And it was not the same thing in 1991, because jiu-jitsu, and like I said, everybody wanted to prove that they were the best. So, so yeah, like I said, it definitely was a different vibe back then.
Hey, cause like you hear the stories of like the dojo storming and like uh these people that try to take advantage of this new sports, take advantage of people's money. So it's like you saw a lot of like crazy stuff when, I guess you want to say, jujitsu and other martial arts as well really start to like flourish over here. And I got my instructor. He's a Joe Moore black belt, so he's been training for a while, and just hearing the different stories from him about how it was growing up, learning this crazy martial art. Because back then, before UFC, you didn't have jujitsu schools anywhere.
Yeah,
It was more so like you get the karate, you get karate, you get kickboxing, you get taekwondo, and especially here in Detroit, that's usually what I saw. I was like very, very few and far between when it came to like those martial arts, but never heard of jujitsu.
yeah. When I
Never.
first started in 91, my introduction to jiu-jitsu was in a self-defense class, at UC San Diego. It wasn't actually a jiu-jitsu school, and at that time there was no jiu-jitsu schools in San Diego. We had to drive up from San Diego to Los Angeles to train with, the Gracies back then, or eventually Joe, but eventually schools did open,
Yeah.
like in San Diego, one of the first ones was Fabio Santos there. But yeah, like I said, it was a thing where there definitely weren't many schools, and to be able to train with a black belt, you really had to put in the effort to travel, pay the money, all this kind of stuff there. And I always feel like those old grandpas, when I was your age and back in my day, we had to do that, and like I literally had to drive 2 hours one way for a group class. So, when I hear students, they're driving 30 minutes, 40 minutes to class, that's too much of a drive. I can't go to this. I'm just like, oh my God, that's some weak sauce right there,
I used to walk into school in the snow.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah. We had to pay way more money, drive 2 hours, but I that is, to me, that is just part of the jiu-jitsu journey. Everybody has obstacles here, and one of my obstacles, when I was younger, was time. Yeah, like I said, there wasn't there weren't many schools around. So if you wanted to train with black belt, you know, I had to drive from San Diego, where Joe at that time was in Newport Beach, right, to Newport Beach just for a group class, and then drive back here. You know, that way, you know,
Wow.
so that's what I'm saying. People are very, very lucky with what they have now, with all this, you know, free information, online trainings, you know, books, videos, and, you know, countless instructors around, depending on where you live. Like I'm here in Northern California, tons of instructors. If you live in Southern California, man, it's all over the place, right? So you
Right.
have, there's just so much available to students now.
Yeah, because even here, I think I may have ran into maybe like 5 or 6 jujitsu, like pure jujitsu schools here in like Michigan that I found that's listed, I should say, because
Yeah.
there's probably some that's not listed, but yeah, I still don't see too many schools, too many jujitsu schools here.
Yeah, in
So
the Midwest and other places, there definitely are areas that are much more sparse, right? You know, I mean, if you look at outside of Brazil, right, the number one place for jiu-jitsu is just Los Angeles,
yeah,
right? And then
yeah,
right, and then it's like California, yeah, San Diego, you know, and other areas like New York and other, you know, have grown a ton there, but yeah, like LA is the number one spot for jujitsu, and then and like here in Northern California is also pretty big. I mean, obviously, my area is not as big as Los Angeles, but and as dense. But yeah, there are definitely places that are still a little bit, you know, sparse when it comes to jujitsu.
yeah, definitely. And I mean, I guess that eventually started to change as time goes on, because I'll be, I got my brown belt last year in October. Was it? Yeah, October. So like, we always talk about like venturing and open up our own school and whatnot. And that's the type of stuff that I look at, because you have to think of like, location and just a whole bunch of stuff that really people don't talk about on the like in jujitsu, because no one really thinks about owning a school. They just want to train. So it's like trying to look at it as in the business aspect of it, and also growing that family. You know what I'm saying? Because everyone wants to eventually sprout their wings one day. Eventually open a school, and just looking at how things are, it's like, man, this is gonna be rough a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, but you have potential in those areas because you have less competition too. You can open up in an area that doesn't have jujitsu and possibly be successful. I mean, I
True.
definitely know of instructors that have just gone, you know, black belts that have gone in areas and they've just boom because they're the only people in town, and that's it here.
Hmm.
I mean, the thing with, like, let's say even the Northern California area, yeah, you definitely have a lot of you have a good number of schools. People become black belts and they want to open up schools, but the market is kind of saturated here, you know, and so there's a lot of competition. I mean, everybody can have open up a school and have a certain number of students, but you know how successful that will be. You know, I mean, it is tough in the areas that have a high amount of competition. So there is the, you know, where you are, there is the possibility, you know, that in other places that where it's sparse, there's also opportunity there, right?
Right.
So the only time the opportunity really kind of opened up here in this area was during the pandemic here when they shut down all the business. Then that was the first time ever, you know, demand far exceeded supply, right?
Hmm.
Um, so yeah.
So how was that for you when when the pandemic happened? Being a school owner.
At first, I was kind of unsure about what was going to happen. You know, I
Hmm.
like most people here, and you know, our school had to close down. The owner of our school wanted to make sure that we followed all the rules that the county required there, and and you know, like most people, you think, oh, it's only going to be, you know, 2 weeks to flatten the curve, right? You know, that's a little amount of time here. then more time passing here,
Man.
you realize that this thing is just going on longer and longer. And then, me personally, I was having some issues with collecting unemployment from the EDD, so I was just like, okay, financial, I got to figure something out because I just cannot be sitting here. And it really was a type of thing where I turned lemons into lemonade. I was like, all right, I'm going to I'm gonna there were people that were interested. I'm gonna start just teaching private lessons, quietly here. I think that I have to make a living here, and so it wasn't a thing where I'm just gonna sit around and wait for the government to save me here. And it ended up working out very, very well for me here. Like I said, there was a good number of people who, who wanted to train, wanted to. So I just kept everything quiet. Now the pandemic's over, I tell people this.
Right.
And but I will say this here, okay? In all the time that I taught private, quietly during the pandemic, no one in that private group ever got COVID.
Nice.
It never came into our training group here. So yeah, it ended up working out very well. So when things actually started to open back up, it kind of changed my focus, because before I was teaching a lot of just group classes at the school there, and I've really just cut that down and focused mainly on private lessons here, and that has grown a lot, actually. And I think that what the pandemic did was, since there was no group instructions, people who normally would have not done private lessons started doing them with me. And then they're like, man, we really like this here. I'm
Yeah.
really improving a lot more than group classes. And then even once things opened up again, they're like, you know what? I want to keep going with this. I'm making really good progress. Let's keep going with this. So, like I said, I think that there would have been many people who wouldn't have tried private lessons because they're like, we got the group classes. It had things not shut down. But once they gave it once they gave it a try, they're like, wow, this is really, really good and making really good progress. And that ended up shifting me as far as business wise, when it came to what I was focusing on.
Okay. Yeah. Because when we had that shutdown, yeah, like everyone thought it was gonna be a week or two or whatever, and then those days just turned to months and months, and we were at the point where, like, me and my instructor were texting like, hey man, this has been too long since we've been on the mats. We got to figure something out. So we, like he said, like we worked together, and he calls me in his office, and he was like, all right, look, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna take the training mask, and we're gonna cut a filter from, like, a little disposable mask, put it in there, and let's see how that works. So we're experimenting, and like I said, it's been like maybe almost a month since we actually, like, trained and rode. So not only that, we go in with full mask on, trying to roll, and damn near died. It was like we're sweating this. Like, we took the I forgot what the little membrane out, so it doesn't, like, constrict if the switch goes. But man, we were still like just dying, man, because, like, okay, we got to figure out something else, man. This ain't gonna work.
I always tell people, man, if you're rolling with Max, that's just theater, man. You're face to face with breathing on each other so close. If somebody had COVID or anything, the flu, you're gonna get it. You're
gonna get it.
Stop anything. It's up there, I mean, you're literally face to face, the closest possible contact you could have with the person there. Yeah. So
you gotta keep that mask on, though.
Yeah.
We're gonna ground faces and chins and everything else, but no, keep that mask on.
Yeah. So
It was rough, man. It was rough, but I know we made it through. We definitely made it through.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it definitely the pandemic hurt a lot of schools. You know, I definitely heard of schools that went under as a result of it. There, you know, it hurt definitely
Mm-hmm.
a lot of businesses, put businesses behind. You know, yeah, yeah. It's kind of unfortunate all that happened there. So, but for me, it ended up working out
Yeah,
well. So.
that's good. So so do you have like a fairly large school, or like how big is your school?
Well, the our Smash Gyms, we have different locations. We have one in Sunnyvale, California, Mountain View, California, and San Jose, California. Actually, and also Milpitas here. And prior to the pandemic, I was mainly teaching at the Sunnyvale locations. I did teach at some of the other locations, like once a week or something like that
Mm-hmm.
here. And it's not primarily a jujitsu school. They focus a lot more. You know, they have like strength training and kickboxing and all this kind of stuff. You know, but prior to the pandemic, I was teaching, you know, kids classes and jujitsu classes. So all the programs were doing very, very well, very successful there. And then the pandemic happened, right? And then, like I said, once things started opening up, I just decided to change my focus. So instead of, while I do teach at one of the locations, and the program is growing, and I assist in the growth of it, my own personal focus has become more with the private lessons here, and so the program, I feel, is definitely still recovering from what we lost in the pandemic. I mean, one thing aspect that was unfortunate is I definitely think that there was a lot of people that quit that had the pandemic not occurred, they would not have quit.
Yeah.
You know, and so, but on the other hand, like I said, you know, my focus been different, different now, you know, and in a way, I kind of like it because I don't feel like the core of my own business is um, competing with other schools for business anymore
Right.
here, right? You know, and for example, I have a good number of kids that come to me from other judo and jujitsu schools for me to do private lessons in judo here, because they've seen my sons do extremely well in judo, and the way that I teach and the style that I teach is kind of different. So they do extra private lessons just to supplement on top of what they learn at their own schools here, right? So I'm not competing; I'm actually assisting those people, and I'm
Yeah.
fine with it. Those people compete; they compete for their own school. Their school gets recognition. I don't mind here, you know, and so it's definitely a different business model for me. Like I said, I don't feel like I'm competing with any other school, and you know, I don't have to say, hey, you know, my class is better, or oh, you know, we got to people shopping around for rates. I don't have to bother with that anymore
Mm-hmm.
here. So so yeah, yeah, and like I said, in that personal aspect, it's grown. It's definitely grown well. But the school itself, like I said, it definitely lost a good amount from the pandemic, and then me coming back, having more of an emphasis on private lessons. The growth coming back has been a little slower.
Right. Yeah, we yeah, after the pandemic, we lost quite a few students because of, of the pandemic, and then, people was working, and then they got stuck in, well, not want to say stuck in their jobs, but they got so deep into the jobs where it's like, well, this is kind of became a little bit more important. So, like you said, life happens with, when it comes to that, but we're slowly starting to grow back. I think we got I think maybe like 13. I think it's like maybe like 13 of us now.
Mm.
No, we're a fairly small school and whatnot, so that's kind of large for us. Like on a good day, we get like a good 10, and we like, yeah, that's a full class. But you talk to people, and I'll ask like, how many people you have in your class, and like, oh, we're kind of small, maybe like 60 to 75. Where I'm like, What? Like 60,
Yeah,
75
yeah,
people?
yeah. I mean, prior to the pandemic, I was teaching kids classes, and we'd have 30 something, 40, almost 40 kids in classes
Oh,
there. I mean, that
wow.
it was, it was definitely, it was tough there. I mean, it was a good program. I feel like I ran it well here, and but I mean, something like the kids run is a very, very tough. Managing kids is extremely difficult,
Yes.
and so I eventually decided like I rather handle children privately. It was much easier one on one. I have no behavioral issues that I have to deal with here. These are all if these kids are willing to take private lessons, they are probably into it and not there to goof around, and it just worked out a lot better. So like I said, yeah, I have a good number of kids that are doing private lessons, and that was actually not something that I originally expected either here, and like I said, as I kind of mentioned before, it was kind of unexpected, and a lot of it actually has to do with my sons. Like I said, the many of these people that have come to me have seen my sons do extremely well in competition, like in judo competition there, and then they're like, show us what they're doing and stuff there, and so um so yeah, I give them a lot of credit here, and that the work that they've put in, it's actually helped me as far as business wise
Oh
goes.
yeah. Oh yeah. Cause my daughter trains, and I'll talk to, like, parents at her school, because my daughter, being my number one fan, she has a hoodie of the podcast, so they were asking her about it. But I'll tell them, like, yeah, this is good for their focus and confidence and everything else, and they're just like, but then I show them a video of my daughter training, and they be like, dang, she can do all that. Yeah. Yeah, like she knows this stuff. Like, I can have her. She knows her principles. She know her rules. She know her snakes. She knows as much as you think a 7-year-old should know in jujitsu, and she's more eager to learn. So it's like, yeah, man, it's very beneficial for me as well, being an assistant instructor, especially with kids class. Because if you can sit down and teach some kids who has an attention span of a goldfish,
Yeah,
like, you can teach a group of adults, because you
yeah.
have to have patience with them.
No, I think it's great that your daughter's doing that. I personally think that uh, martial arts, or just learning to defend yourself, is an essential life skill, just as swimming is.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
I think that parents have their kids learn to swim when they're young because they don't want them to drown, right? I mean, a lot of kids die from drowning and stuff there, and I think that life is not this perfect little thing. Unfortunately, there's bad people out there. Unfortunately, there's violence out there. There's bullying. I got bullied when I was younger here. I know what it's like to be on the receiving end of that, being scared every single day of somebody about to kick your ass and stuff there,
Yeah.
and at school. And so I think that it is an essential skill. I don't think it's optional. I do want my boys to eventually one day get black belts, and whatever. But my minimum requirement is you have to know how to defend yourself. Right?
Yeah.
And I think that is, like I said, that's essential as swimming is there.
Mhm.
I know that a lot of parents don't see it that way, and but like I said, I make sure, and I think for me, part of the thing is like, because I was on the receiving end of bullying when I was in like seventh grade for like an entire year, just like that. I was like, my kids will never feel that fear. There's,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
one of those things where you want your children to benefit from your life experiences. And one of my life experiences is getting bullied, being that helpless, skinny little kid that anybody, nerdy little kid that people felt they could bully and pick on and try to beat up and whatever like this here. I'm like, that ain't ever happening to my
That's never, like, yeah, because you see it in yourself, if because you've lived that. So it's like, oh, I don't never want to live that trauma again. Granted, it's kind of almost, I'm not gonna say impossible now, but no one's gonna like try to bully you now. But yeah, your kids who don't know this stuff and they're young, they're innocent, and it's like you don't want to have that conversation where you hear your son or your daughter's being bullied at school, and it's just like, oh man, I know what they're going through, and you just get mad for them.
Yeah, yeah,
So
and I also know what it's like to not have parental support. When I was younger, and I would tell my mom that I was getting bullied. Her thing was, yeah, you must have done something to deserve it. I'm like, what? What kind of attitude is that? I was just like, yeah. So I'm like, I took the exact opposite where I was analyzed like, why do children get bullied? Here,
mhm.
right? What are the type of kids that get bullied? All right, these are the qualities. I will make sure my children do not have these particular qualities here, right? I always say, like, for example, with bully people who get bullied with children, it's almost like law of the jungle. They sense weakness, whether it's physical weakness or mental weakness here. So you can have a person who's physically big, but their personality is very timid. They may get bullied. Sometimes you have somebody who just physically looks small and weak. They get bullied and stuff there, right? You never see the captain of the football team get bullied because he's probably
Never.
strong as hell and stuff there,
Right.
right? And so I made sure I'm like, my kids aren't gonna be scrawny and weak and stuff there. Not just the martial arts there, and I think that the martial arts stuff, it gives you it's confidence here,
Mhm.
and I think that when you're confident and you carry yourself with confidence, a lot of times you don't need it. And then that's the funny thing. It's like once I learned martial arts and I naturally became more confident, I never ever needed. I was never placed in that situation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think, like I said, yeah, how you carry yourself, it makes a difference. And so I wanted to make sure my kids didn't have those qualities. I wanted to make sure that I supported my kids here, right? I would tell my children here, don't you ever start a fight and become a bully, because if you become a bully, oh, your ass is done when you come
Yeah.
home there, right?
Yeah.
But I will never ever punish you for protecting yourself here.
Yep.
I don't care what a school says. I don't care what some administrator says, teacher, government, whatever, like this here. Like, you do not sit there and just get your ass beat because you didn't want to break the rules. Do not do that and stuff there,
Right.
and so but yeah, I mean, it ended up like not really making that much of a difference for my kids, because my kids end up being homeschooled, and so the only bully they have is me.
Right. Of course.
But just in carrying themselves here, just
Mhm.
when they go out in the world, they carry themselves, and I think that it makes a big difference. I would say, like, women should learn jujitsu, self defense, whatever here, just because it's a dangerous world out there, for women, and whether it's whatever, assault, rape, whatever like that, it's a very useful tool to have. For men, this the ultimate finality of conflict between men is fighting here,
Mhm.
and I think that when you have confidence, a lot of times you just don't need to do it anymore here,
Yeah.
sense that confidence. And there's a great example where in my homeowners association, we were talking, people were talking, this was many years ago, and one of my neighbors was saying how these, like, teens would come into the neighborhood, and I don't know, they're at the park drinking, smoking, doing whatever, like this here, which they're not, supposed to be doing within our park there. And, like, these teens he would tell them, like, hey, you guys aren't supposed to be there. And they would, like, talk to him in a very aggressive, almost combative way, and he was kind of nervous. He's like, oh, they're kind of, couple of them, they're kind of circling around me and stuff there. And he was kind of afraid. Man, when I talk to these people, they don't do nothing here. It's and I'm not trying. I think it's just the way you carry yourself. If you carry
Yeah.
yourself confidently, I think that people sense it, and I'm not doing anything harsh. If I just say, hey, you mind not smoking or whatever around here, and then, okay, and But, you know, I think that that's an example of just having the confidence with martial arts. If you, the way you carry yourself here, the way you stand, your posture, right? You know, and you know, I think that sometimes that you can avoid certain situations just because you don't look like somebody that can be easily pushed around.
Yeah, you don't look like a target.
Yeah.
And that's, and that's what I try to, explain to my daughter and other people that I talk to about getting their kids into martial arts, because the first thing they want to do is try to punish them because they have anger issues. Like, well, they don't have no outlet for that. You punish them, or you're being combative with them, so it does nothing but fuel that rage. Like, my daughter, when she have her moments, I'm like, hey, we can go in and we can go work that out. You ain't got to be mad all the time, or you like, what are you being so upset for? Well, this happened, this happened. It's not, for one, it's not that big of a deal. Let's just get back out there and train. You know. So, but just explain to her, like, when I really introduced her into like jujitsu, it was at my first tournament at Purple Belt. So she's been in classes before, but we didn't have kids class at this point. So this would be her first time really seeing kids like roll and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, this is going to be like the cultural shock if she really wants to train, or she just doing it because I'm doing it. So she's watching these kids and she's like sitting there and she's like, all these different emotions is running through her face. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? She's like, Daddy, did you bring my gi? I was like, bring your gi for what? She's like, I want to go train. I want to train with the kids. I was like, nah, this is competition. They're not training. They're actually fighting. She's like, well, I want to fight too. So I was like, okay, like we'll work on that. But yeah, man, just getting your kid into a martial art at an early age it'd be very, very beneficial for them in the long run, more than you can ever imagine. Even for yourself too, like even as an adult too. So
yeah, and the toughest part, honestly, with eventually with kids is when they become teenagers, because that is the highest rate of dropout here. One is that for kids who are attending school, there are many times that they end up investing their time into school, like team sports at school, right? You know, and then I've had tons of students just disappear and quit. I think that uh, you know, when you're little, you know, the parents are just get in the car, let's go here. And then, you know, when you are older, you tend to have a mind of your own more opinions, and oh, I don't feel like doing this, and they get it. You know, I've seen boys just get into like weightlifting and girls, and they don't want to train anymore and stuff there.
right.
And so definitely the biggest you know, obstacle when it comes to children is eventually to be able to have them continue training even through their teen years here.
Yeah.
That's really the toughest toughest part. Now with my boys, you know, like the amount that they train has waned here. You know, I mean, they were training a lot more when they were younger. They do hit that teenage point where, like, if I didn't tell them to train, they wouldn't train anything. But me being me and them being my sons, oh, you're training. There's no such thing.
There's no, yeah.
There's no such thing as quitting here. You know, but I don't pressure them to like, oh, you got to get to black belt. You just keep doing it, you know. And so, you know, as a parent who's had kids that been competing since they were like 6 years old and stuff there, you know, and I mean, it feels really good, of course, when your children compete and win, but you eventually, you know, I tell people, you know, when you're older, even if when you're a teenager, they're a teenager, what you won at 7 years old, 8 years old, it don't make any difference. Nobody's bragging about what they won when they're 8 years old and stuff there.
Right.
You know? And
right.
so for me, it's just like, just keep them in it, even if it's a little bit, even if it's like my oldest son now is 18. He's working, he's doing whatever. And I'm just like, okay, minimally you're doing it once a week here, you know? And he's like, all right, you know, and I understand his job, you know, he's tired, he's whatever, but I'm like, you minimally get it once a week. And I did tell him though, I said, like, because they compete, as I mentioned before, a lot in judo. And I did tell my oldest son, I said, you know, I really hope that one day, you can work towards getting black belt in judo. And I hope that you continue competing. The reason being is, I said, as a father, I really enjoy the bonding that we have when I coach you in competition. And I hope that even as you go, you're going to be 19 this year, you're going to 20s. I hope that we can continue to have these experiences together here. It's fun here,
Yeah.
or lose, I enjoy that there. And I think that is something that, I think that's something that's resonates. I mean, what son doesn't want to bond with their father and stuff there,
Yeah.
and I hope he continues to at least have some, keep being involved, because I think he also, my boys know that, like, I'm not interested in anything except jujitsu.
Yeah, I know, right?
I don't watch any other sports. It's my wife would be like, oh, when they were younger, maybe get them into soccer. I'm like, dude, I don't want to go into soccer. I'm not interested in any sports and stuff there. It's just, it's all
Nah.
this stuff there, So, but yeah. Anyway, like I said, the teenage times, it's the toughest there, and it is. But if they can get through that, I always say that, like, even if you kind of make them train, force them, whatever you want to call it, just even once a week, I've never heard anybody as an adult say, damn it, these incredible skills that I have, I wish I didn't have it and stuff there.
I know, right?
Nobody has said that and stuff there. I mean, like when I was young, I played I'm Asian, so I have to play a musical instrument. Like I said, my mom, 5th grade, is already like, you need something on your college application. So you need to, I'm playing the clarinet. This is 5th grade for college applications, right? I look back, like, could I have done without playing the clarinet? Yeah, I probably could have, like, I mean, like, I would prefer not to, but like I said, nobody's gone, all these black belt skills. I just wish I didn't have these skills.
Right.
Nobody said this.
Nobody.
Right?
Nobody.
Everybody. If you look at every adult who does jujitsu, they always look at somebody younger and says, "I wish I started at your age." They look at a little kid. I wish I did that. Right?
Yeah.
And it is, right. I think that if you ask any adult, if they could go back in time, they would probably say this: "Hey, tell their parents, put me in jujitsu when I was young. No matter how much I complain, never allow me to
Never
quit."
allow me to quit.
Yes,
Exactly.
every adult who does jujitsu would agree. Like, if they could do that, go back in time and do that, they would here.
In a heartbeat. In a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, especially,
man.
when you're young, you don't get sore. I mean, I have adult students that they go and compete. The next day, they're like, oh my God, I'm dying sore and stuff there, right? My boys have done like 2 competitions, one competition on Saturday, a different competition on Sunday. You sore? No, I'm totally fine and stuff there. I mean, like, I told my boys, I'm like, enjoy the attributes of youth that you
Enjoy
have.
it.
No soreness, no achiness after you train here. When you have I mean, right, my boys are like 17, 18 right now. Their testosterone and growth hormone, that's natural TRT right there, right? They're
Yeah.
on the incline. I mean, the rate in which they can increase their conditioning, like they do conditioning routines, and how fast their body can improve, it's incredible. Like, my body can't improve that quickly.
I wish, man,
I
I
know,
wish.
like, I remind them, constantly. I'm like, don't, this is a gift that you have that will not last forever. Enjoy it as much as you can here. Use it as much as you can here, because as they see with their dad, it's going downhill. You got to work way harder to get half the results and stuff there, and so yeah, it's yeah, like I said, the teens part, that's the toughest part, and I hope that once they get through it, that they, even as adults, in jujitsu, that's really what matters, right? If you're a competitor, like I said, if you're 30 years old, you're not bragging about what you won at 8. People would be laughing at you, talking about your medals you won at 8 years old and stuff there. I mean, if you're a
Right.
competitor, it's like what you won as an adult and stuff there, right? And in jujitsu, you can't get black belt until you're 18, right? Blue is like what, 15, 16, right? So
Yeah.
what you did when you're little doesn't really matter as much and stuff there. It's really what you do when you get older. So I hope that at least for my boys, they continue doing it. But I also tell, parents that like your kid is into it now, but be ready when they hit those, middle school, high school years, that's the tough part as a parent. Like, are you going to listen to them go, no, I don't really feel like doing anything here, and especially boys too. It is, I think that boys especially parents need to watch out for here, and because I always say this here, this is kind of, and it just, if you hear about some person who is, let's say 30 years old, living at home, doing nothing but living it with their parents and playing video games, I go, is is the first image come in your mind a boy or a girl? It's male here, right? I mean, right now, statistically, women are graduating college at a higher rate than men are and stuff there, right? And it's so I definitely think that boys tend to have this certain lazy spell that parents really definitely have to watch out for there.
Because we see that in our kids' class. Like, we got, a few girls, we got a couple guys in class, and it's my daughter and another female student that's retaining all this stuff. We like, hey, let's practice snakes. They go do the snakes. The boys are just like, just being zombies about it. I'm like, come on, man. Like, y'all are holding up class. Y'all want to do all this special stuff, but y'all don't want to we can't even get through the basics without, y'all guys taking all day.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about this too, since you said you teach good, and I've asked teachers of this, my wife used to be a teacher and stuff there. I said, when it came to the students that misbehaved the most here, are they generally boys or girls? It's always boys.
It's always boys.
Yeah.
Always boys.
So it definitely, you got to really be on the boys when it comes to keeping them on the straight and narrow here. It's yeah.
Because it was like, yesterday, we had 3 new kids join, 2 girls and a little boy, and the girls were like glued. They were like sitting here watching it, like, watching. We were going over scissor sweep, and their first time ever doing jujitsu or anything, they hit it perfectly. I felt good because I'm like, okay, wow, they got it on the first try. And looking at the little boy, I'm like, you ready to do it? He's like, no. I'm like, come on, you got this. I don't know how to do it. Like, I'm gonna show you. I'm like, your opponent got you here. Turn to your side. He's like, I don't want to. I'm like, but the girls were boom, 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 right on it, man. So yeah, but I definitely try not to. I try to make sure I keep my daughter interested in it. Try to keep it fun for her, but make sure that it's important to continue to train. And she'll text me like, Dad, I don't think I'm going to class today. And I'm like, oh, all right, be ready by the time I get home. And she'll be ready and she'll go and she'll enjoy class. And then oh, Daddy, I'm so happy I didn't miss today. I'm like, I bet you did. Yeah, I bet you did.
Yeah, and that's another important thing too, when you look at like children and just general laziness, right? When it comes to, if your kid says they don't want to go to class, watch how they are in class. For example, are they miserable every minute that they're in class? Or is it kind of thing where they say they don't want to go, but when they're there, they're having fun, they're doing great. And a lot of times it's that. So I'm like, that's just laziness talking and stuff there.
Yeah.
It's a different story if they're just miserable from beginning to the end, months pass and it never changes for them and stuff there, but I definitely see a lot of kids that, like, when they're in class, they're having fun, they're doing great and stuff there, and my boys have been very similar too at times where they're like, oh, I go roll. Okay. And then when they're doing it, they're laughing, they're having fun and stuff there, and I'm like, man, that's just laziness.
That's me. I'm me. That is me. I'm like, I don't want to go to class. And I'm pulling up at the gym, grabbing my bag, getting ready to roll.
Yeah.
But when I get there,
an interesting thing you say about this too, and this is, when I first got my black belt in 2001, I was 27 here, right?
Okay.
And I kind of had this attitude of like, man, I was really busting my ass, working hard to get to black belt, and so, my progress was really, progressing well. And then like, now I got black belt. If my progress is a little slower, I'm okay with that. So I was much more lackadaisical on my training and how much I pushed myself, and just learning. I mean, I always was still teaching, but I'm talking about just my own progress there.
Mm-hmm.
And then right now I'm 49, I am, and I've been for past however many years, I've just been plagued with injuries and things like this that have hindered my ability to train, and in some aspects, certain aspects of regular life there. And I look back and I regret the times that, like, man, I was 28 and I could have trained more and I didn't here,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that whatever you are now, don't think it lasts forever here, and I think that we all tend to do this, even when you're young, right? If you're young and you're pain-free, you think that you'll be like that forever. It's hard for a 13-year-old to imagine that their body won't be the way they feel like this forever here,
Oh yeah.
and so I definitely wish I had taken more advantage of the time and the body that I had when I was younger here. And then once again, this goes back to what I say. I emphasize this. This is why I emphasize this to my children. It's like it doesn't last forever here. And if
Right.
we have, being that jujitsu is physically performance based, we have a small window of time to really kick ass. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be a point where age will take us all here, right? Where our physical attributes, you just can't hang
Just
with,
just can't do it no more.
18-year-old, anymore, and we can do all that we can to try to delay that, but it is inevitable here, and so I definitely think about that a lot, especially in the past couple of years of like, man, I gotta do whatever it is that I can, obviously balancing not making my body worse here, and then doing what I can. But once again, with people who are like start getting lazy and this and that, I'm like, dude, if you want to do this, you have a limited amount of time to
Yeah.
really, really, I mean, you can do it to the day you die, right? But to really kick some ass, and maximize your potential there, the time is limited, right? It's just like any
Very.
pro
Yeah.
athlete has a certain amount of time that they can be pro, and then it just goes down, and it's not the same anymore. So that just you saying just like, oh, going to class, and I'm like, now I think about that here, I'm like, yeah, when you can't do it anymore, you wish you could do
Right.
it
That's
here.
why I'm like, I suck it up. Like, you know what, man? Tomorrow I can't. It's a possibility tomorrow I won't be doing this. Just go ahead and just do it now, man. But I definitely agree with all of that.
Mhm.
So we're just gonna wrap it up real quick. So quick question for you. Um, who are the your top 3 dream roles? Like, if you could pick 3 people to roll with, like, who would that be?
Hmm. Um, Let me think here. I think that two of them is actually the same person. I would be very curious to roll with a Hickson Gracie in his prime, and also a Hickson Gracie now that he's like 60 years old or whatever, like this here,
Mm-hmm.
because I would like to see how things have changed here. How someone at his level and his understanding of jujitsu, because I definitely, I have a friend who said that he had an opportunity to train with Hickson and actually roll with Hickson too. They like, and Hickson
Mm.
had no cameras here, and he's like, dude, this guy, and Hickson this is several years ago, so Hickson at least was in his very late 50s
Mm-hmm.
here, and he's just like, dude, he's still really good here. His defenses are really good. His open guard's really good. But I would like that would be very, very interesting to very interesting to to feel, that
Yeah.
contrast here, and I think that contrast also for me, because I'm also getting older. I'm not as old as he is, obviously, but just to see how his game has changed. Because I mean, look, even Joe Moreira's game has changed now that he's like 60 something years old,
Yeah.
right? If you look, and it's actually gotten better here,
Way
right?
better.
Because if you look on YouTube, there's actually footage of him and I rolling maybe around 2001, 2002 here. And like both of our games have changed. The way he pins, like I almost look at us rolling. I'm like, oh, both of us, that don't look so
I
good.
know, right? Like, ew. What's wrong with
What
you?
we're doing now looks way, way better and stuff there. So I would be curious there. I think the other thing that any like the other person I think would be interested in rolling with would be yeah, maybe like a, well, this is multiple, but like a Hodger Gracie, Marcelo Garcia type of person, just somebody at the top, one of those people that you name, like our names are amongst the greatest of all time, just because like I want to feel those godlike powers just be put down on me.
I know, right?
You know, and um yeah, you know, and those two guys too. I mean, I think like guys like Marcelo and Hodger Gracie. I mean, you look at them, that they have retired from competition, right? They're older, but they're still destroying people and stuff there. You know, and that amazes me. And maybe the common theme is that you know, because I am older, I'm very curious about how these people, as they get older, they keep maintaining such a high level of skill here, you know, and so I'm like, yeah, I mean, I don't really care about, you know, the latest 20-year-old champion. Yeah, yes, I'm sure they have incredible technique. I'm sure you have incredible attributes too, but I want to see what happens, you know, when you have these people that are very, very high level and their attributes are disappearing here, right? They're slowly fading away here, you know, and you know, guys like Marcelo, like Hodger, you see them like, you know, they've retired from competition, and yet they say they're just still destroying people. I'm like, that's amazing.
Amazing. Definitely. But yeah, unless you have any more questions for me, Michael, I would love if you know, plug your school. If you got anything coming up for the school or any events, man, you know, the floor is all yours.
No, thank you for having me on. Like I said, you can check me out. If you're ever anybody's in the Northern California area, I'm at Smash Gyms Mountain View here. And if anybody's interested in private lessons, you can just email me, Michael at smashgyms.com. You know, if you want to learn how to maintain how's this, an effective system of jujitsu as you begin to get older here, you know, like same with Joe. It's like, I wish I had the mind I had for jujitsu now back in my 20-year-old body here.
Oh man, don't we both? We both?
Yeah. Like my just understanding of jujitsu is a lot better. And, you know, I always tell my students, you know, because most of my students, I only have a very, very few people that are in their 20s and younger, besides the kids, right? But most of the adult male, they're like 30 on up and stuff there. And I'm like, in a way, it's kind of cool for you guys that I've had these injuries, because now I play a game that is designed to not stress my body here, and then you guys are benefiting from it here, right? Yeah. So I'm like, don't do that. We don't do this anymore because this one stresses your back too much. So I do this here instead here, and hopefully this can save you guys here. So so yeah. Anyway, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Man, like I said, the pleasure's all mine, man. It's been wonderful talking to you. And that's the end of today's episode. I would like to thank my guest Michael again for coming on and sharing his wisdom and tales with us. I hope you guys really enjoyed the show. Please go and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube so you can stay up to date on all future episodes. This has been Talk Your Jits podcast. Keep rolling, keep grinding, and remember, long live Jiu-Jitsu. Have a great day. And we're done.